Section 7 of Journal of the Reverend Francis Asbury, Volume 2. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Brian Keenan. Friday 30. We rode in the rain. It was almost enough to kill healthy men. After steeping our feet in warm water, we came to Brother Downing's. Next day we rode 28 miles to Paramore's. My rest being interrupted, I rose early and rode through the cold to the love feast, where we had great shouting. Although very weak in body, I rode 30 miles. A dish of tea and a biscuit and a half was all my food till 6 o'clock in the evening. Monday, November 2. I rode 40 miles to Magotty Bay, and preached to a few people. The antinomians pleased them and gained them. Alas for us! Oh, that the Lord would send an earthquake of his power among them. Tuesday 3. We had an open time at Brother Jay's. The school for the charity boys much occupies my mind. Our annual expenditure will amount to £200, and the aid we get is but trifling. The poverty of the people and the general scarcity of money is the great source of our difficulties. The support of our preachers, who have families, absorbs our collections, so that neither do our elders nor the charity school get much. We have the poor, but they have no money, and the worldly, wicked rich we do not choose to ask. I have ridden about 100 miles from Sunday morning till Tuesday night, at the same time very unwell with a cold and influenza, which spreads in almost every family. Wednesday 4. We had many people at Accomack Courthouse, and Power attended the word whilst Brothers E. and W. spoke. Thursday and Friday, 5-6. We held quarterly meeting at Downing's. The first day the Lord was powerfully present, and the people were greatly agitated. On the second day at the love feast and sacrament there was a shout, and I believe 200 souls praised God at one time. My soul was happy among them. Maryland, Saturday 7. At Animessex quarterly meeting the Lord was amongst the people on the first day. On Sunday at the love feast the young were greatly filled, and the power of the Most High spread throughout. It appeared as if they would have continued till night if they had not been in some measure forced to stop, that we might have public worship. I stood near the window and spoke on Isaiah 64, 1-5. There was a stir, and several sinners went away. There were very uncommon circumstances of a supernatural kind said to be observed at this meeting. The saints of the world are dreadfully displeased at this work, which, after all, is the best evidence that it is of God. The preachers urged me to preach at Princess Anne. I did so, and many poor, afflicted people came out. I trust some will be able to say of Christ, "He is altogether lovely." I felt uncommon power in preaching at Thomas Garretson's. Surely the Lord will work. At the quarterly meeting I did not speak the first day. The second I preached on Romans 10, 14, 15. There was a little stir, yet this is said to be the dullest or one of the dullest places in the peninsula. Thursday 12 was a warm day, and we had a heavy ride to the Line Chapel. There were but few hearers, owing to the great affliction that prevails. The influenza and other complaints carry off many people, and it is an awful time. Friday 13. Came to Broad Creek Chapel, where some of the wicked had broken the windows. There had been a stir at the quarterly meeting, and a testimony borne against their revellings, and it was judged that on this account the injury was committed on the house. My throat was sore, and my testimony feeble, on 2 Corinthians 6, 1. I rode to the head of Nanticoke, where Brother Watcote preached a warm sermon. Saturday 14. Preached at Brown's Chapel. The general affliction hindered many from attending, but we were happy together, and it was a strengthening, confirming time to many tried souls. Sunday 15. The people were shouting the praises of God when I came. After the noise and fervor had subsided, I preached on the men of Nineveh's repenting at the preaching of Jonah, and the word sunk into some hearts. Monday, 16. We had a noble shout, and the people rejoiced in the Lord. Friday, 20. Being the day of our quarterly meeting fast, we strove to keep it as well as our feeble bodies would admit. Saturday and Sunday, 21, 22. There was a shaking among the people. Some were alarmed, some professed to be justified, and others sanctified, whilst the wicked brought with them much of the power of Satan. I received some relief for my poor orphans. For some days past I have been kept in a humble, living, holy, conquering frame. Monday, 23. Although the northwest wind blew very strong, we crossed Choptank River and came to Bolingbroke. Here we had loud shouts and living testimonies from many of our oldest members, whilst some of our gay young Methodists were mute. Being a day of public thanksgiving, I rode to Y, where there is a good new chapel. The rain hindered, so that we had but few hearers. Came through the rain to Tuckahoe. Friday, 27. There was a good move at Choptank Bridge. I ordained 5 persons to the office of deacons. Saturday, 28. Preached with some freedom at Dover. Sunday, 29. I preached at Duck Creek, stopped and gave them a discourse at Middletown, and spent the evening with a worthy, kind friend. A number of dear old brethren accompanied me to Cokesbury, where we had an examination of the boys, and stationed 11 on Charity. Thence we hastened on to Baltimore. Thursday, December 3. Our council was seated, consisting of the following persons, viz., Richard Ivy from Georgia, R. Ellis, South Carolina, E. Morris, North Carolina, Phil Bruce, North District of Virginia, James O'Kelly, South District of Virginia, L. Green, Ohio, Nelson Reed, Western Shore of Maryland, J. Everett, Eastern Shore, John Dickens, Pennsylvania, J. O. Cromwell, Jersey, and Freeborn Garretson, New York. All our business was done in love and unanimity. The concerns of the college were well attended to, as also the printing business. We formed some resolutions relative to economy and union, and others concerning the funds for the relief of our suffering preachers on the frontiers. We rose on the eve of Wednesday following. During our sitting we had preaching every night. Some few souls were stirred up, and others converted. The prudence of some had stilled the noisy ardor of our young people, and it was difficult to rekindle the fire. I collected about 28 pounds for the poor suffering preachers in the West. We spent one day in speaking our own experiences and giving an account of the progress and state of the work of God in our several districts. A spirit of union pervades the whole body, producing blessed effects and fruits. Thursday, 10. This and the 2 following days were spent in writing and other necessary business. I also preached at Town and Point. Sunday, 13. I delivered some alarming truths at our meeting house with some life. I preached at the German church in the afternoon, and in the evening I spoke on "The men of Nineveh shall rise up in judgment against the men of this generation, and condemn it," etc. Monday, 14. To my comfort I found one of Thomas Cromwell's children under deep distress. When I formerly frequented the house she was a child. Came on to Annapolis and found the work rather dead. Tuesday, 15. I preached with more liberty than the evening before. Wednesday, 16. Set out for Herring Bay. It rained, and our ride was heavy. I lodged with William Weems, once a great zealot for the old church. Thursday, 17. We rode to Childs's, It was an awfully stormy, rainy day, and we had no meeting. The Lord has made bare his arm since my last visit here, and souls have been converted and sanctified. Friday, 18. Rode to Gray's. Here also the Lord hath wrought powerfully amongst the children. Virginia, Saturday, 19. Rode through Charles County to Hoe's Ferry. Death, death. We had prayer at our lodgings. Mr. H. treated us very kindly. Sabbath morning, 20. I read part of the 33rd chapter of Ezekiel's prophecy and gave an exhortation. We then rode 25 miles through the snow to Pope's, where I spoke with some liberty. We found ourselves not at home, so we went to our friend S.'s. My spirit has been wounded, not a little. I know not which to pity most, the slaves or their masters. Thence we went on to the widow Hutt's. I am ill and have little to do, which makes me worse. On Christmas Eve I made a visit to Counselor Carter, a very social gentleman, a Baptist. After preaching we had 15 miles to ride to Sister W.'s, and 20 miles the next morning to Lancaster Quarterly Meeting. Sunday, 27. Feeling myself unwell, Brother Watcoat preached, and our public and society meeting occupied 6 hours and a half. Notwithstanding the rain, we had many to hear, both white and black. I was very sensible that the work of grace was deepened in the souls of the people. Several spoke of the pure love of God. Monday, 28. I felt much enlarged in spirit. It seemed to me as if the Lord was only beginning to work, but the antinomians oppose. Nevertheless, I have growing hopes that the glory of Zion will shortly appear. Tuesday, 29. After waiting at the ferry about 4 hours, we made an attempt to cross in an old boat, with tattered sails, which gave way near the middle of the river. Through mercy we got safe over. Thence directing our course to Turk's Ferry, a poor old negro made out to get us across in a little flat. About 8 o'clock we arrived safely at Sister D.'s, where we found 3 of the preachers waiting for us, preaching having been appointed for the morrow. We had the presence of God with us in the meeting and at the sacrament. Thursday, 31. We had a few attentive people at Brother Bellamy's. Oh, Gloucester, Gloucester, when will it be famous for religion? Finding my appointments not made, we crossed York River and came once more to my dear old friend Weldon's. I was much indisposed. January 1, 1790. No appointment for preaching. We are bound to the south and shall proceed on as fast as we can. Saturday, 2. We were refreshed in the evening. Next day, Sabbath, I preached at Chickahominy Church once more. Sinners, Pharisees, backsliders, hypocrites, and believers were faithfully warned. And of all these characters there were, doubtless, a goodly number in the large congregation which attended. Brother Bruce went to Brown's, and Brother W. and myself to Weldon's. At both these places the Lord was powerfully present in our meetings. Monday, 4. We crossed James River with a fresh wind ahead, and only 2 poor blacks, where 4 ferrymen are necessary. 2 brigs under sail came down full upon us, and we had hard work to get out of their way. These large ferries are dangerous and expensive. Our ferriages alone have cost us £3 since we left Annapolis. Tuesday, 5. Rested, and next day preached at Brother Mooring's. I felt some power among the people, but the glory is measurably departed. The imprudent haste of the young people to marry unbelievers, and divisions excited by other causes, have done much injury. Thursday, 7. Was an ameliorating time at Ellis's church. The next day at Lane's I had many people, although it rained. I felt comfortable in speaking to them. Saturday, 9. was a cold time in a cold house at Brother M's. I felt unwell and much dejected at the situation of the people, whom I found divided about the merits of a certain character, once a preacher among the Methodists, but now disowned, and striving to make a party. This man and the disputes for and against slavery have been hurtful. Sunday 10. Came to Jones's church and was much lifted up in spirit. Monday 11. I had many to hear at Mabry's. Tuesday 12. From Mabry's we came to Brunswick Quarterly Meeting, where there was a considerable quickening and manifestation of the Lord's power. We had a good meeting at Roanoke Chapel. I rejoiced that the society had increased to more than 100 souls. I received a letter from the presiding elder of this district, James O'Kelly. He makes heavy complaints of my power, and bids me stop for 1 year, or he must use his influence against me. Power, power. There is not a vote given in a conference in which the presiding elder has not greatly the advantage of me. All the influence I am to gain over a company of young men in a district must be done in 3 weeks. The greater part of them, perhaps, are seen by me only at conference, whilst the presiding elder has had them with him all the year, and has the greatest opportunity of gaining influence. This advantage may be abused. Let the bishops look to it. But who has the power to lay an embargo on me, and to make of none effect the decision of all the conferences of the Union? North Carolina, Friday, 15. Crossed Roanoke, and was met by several preachers at Sister Pegram's, where the Lord was with us. Saturday, 16. I had a long ride to R. Jones's. We had a good season at the sacrament. Several spoke powerfully of the justifying and sanctifying grace of God. 100 souls have been brought to God. Thus the barren wilderness begins to smile. I found it a time to speak from Isaiah 52:1. We had to ride 16 miles, and here, oh, what my spirit felt! It is a day of very small and feeble things, and but little union among the people. I found it needful to enforce that prayer, O Lord, revive thy work. One poor black fell to the ground and praised God. Tuesday, 19. I had some freedom in preaching at B's, but I fear there is too much vanity and antinomian leaven amongst them to permit much good to be done. Rode to Tomlinson's, but here they made no appointment. At Merritt's Chapel, on New Hope Creek, Chatham County, I enforced, How shall I give thee up, Ephraim? There was some feeling among them, but they are not a united people. Thursday, 21. I rode to the Widow Snipes, 20 miles, and preached on Isaiah 45:22. Then crossed Haw River and came to M's, about 2 hours in the night, where I found a congregation waiting, to whom I spoke on, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, etc. The people were tender. Friday, 22. Came to Rainey's in Orange County to a quarterly meeting, where 7 of our preachers met together. The first day the people were dull. The second, our congregation was large. My subject was, We will give ourselves to prayer and the ministry of the word. I ordained Thomas Anderson to the office of an elder. We rode through a heavy rain 16 miles to our friend Bird's. Here they have built us a complete house of the heart of oak. Proceeded 12 miles to Rocky River, and preached at M. Master's Chapel. Afterward we had a night meeting, and upon the whole I believe we were speaking about 4 hours, besides nearly 2 spent in prayer. We came to our friend Kay's, and were kindly entertained. Thence we went to Mr. Bell's, on Deep River, and were received in the kindest manner. Before I left the house I felt persuaded that that family would come to experience the power of religion. Tuesday, 26. We had to make our way through a dreary path, and rode about 50 miles. We were favored by only getting a sprinkling of rain, which became very heavy after we were housed at Thomas C.'s, about 11 o'clock. Rode to Dr. King's 25 miles and performed the funeral rites of Captain C., who was sick when I was here last year. I then prayed for him and felt as if his sickness was unto death. Now I preached his funeral sermon. My text was, "It is appointed unto men once to die," etc. I felt some enlargement in speaking, and a few people appeared to be moved. I read an account of the wonderful revolution in France. May the good of Protestantism and the glory of God be advanced by it. Since we crossed Roanoke River, we have passed through Warren, Granville, Wake, Chatham, Orange, Randolph, and Richmond counties in North Carolina. After passing Hedgecock Creek, I preached at Knight's Chapel on "My Grace is Sufficient for Thee." There was some quickening, and I was blessed. It is no small exercise to ride 20 miles or more, as we frequently do, before 12 o'clock, taking all kinds of food and lodging, and weather too, as it comes, whether it be good or bad. I saw the hand of the Lord in preserving my life and limbs when my horse made an uncommon start and sprung some yards with me. It was with difficulty I kept the saddle. South Carolina. We had a severe day's ride, and called at the beauty spot. The beauty here has somewhat faded. The society is disjointed, and in a poor state. We made it a 50 miles ride, or thereabouts, to Pryor's. Sunday 31. There were some signs of remaining life seen under preaching, and a little spirit and feeling in the love feast. I felt great enlargement on "How shall I give thee up, Ephraim," etc. I found it heavy work. Monday, February 1. Brother W. preached at the Grove. I.E. and myself spoke after him, and there were gracious signs of tenderness among the people. An elderly Baptist preacher attended, whose heart the Lord touched, and he acknowledged the power of the Most High to be present. We lodged at old friend Jay's, having ridden 25 miles. We were weary and hungry, having breakfasted on tea at 8 o'clock and taken nothing more till 6 o'clock at night. Lord, help me to bear all things without murmuring or disputing. At Flowers's there was a living stir. One soul found peace, and I had freedom in preaching. After riding 15 miles to Sweet's Meeting House on a cold day, we had about a dozen people. Of these few, some were drunk, and began to laugh and trifle round the house. After 3 exhortations and prayers, we came to Port's Ferry, and had to cross in the night, and wade the low places. Came to Sister Blank, and had a comfortable table spread before us, which to us, who had ridden 30 miles through heavy rain, without eating or drinking, was almost necessary. I think our kind hostess has several of the marks St. Paul gives of a widow indeed. I have lately read Thomson's Seasons, containing upwards of 200 pages. I find a little wheat and a great deal of chaff. I have read great authors, so-called, and wondered where they found their finery of words and phrases. Much of this might be pilfered from the Seasons, without injury to the real merit of the work, and doubtless it has been plucked by literary robbers, and my wonder may cease. My own soul has peace, but I feel a death amongst the people. I hope the Lord will come and visit them in power. If they do not turn to God, I expect they will be cut off, and that soon. Saturday 6. Rode to Georgetown, and on the Sabbath Brother W. preached on "In all places where I record my name, I will come in to thee, and I will bless thee." Monday 8. I gave them a close and serious address on rightly dividing the word of truth. Tuesday 9. Came to Wapata and preached on 1 John 4, 16, 17. Wednesday 10. Came to Charleston. Here I received good news from Baltimore and New York. About 200 souls have been brought to God within a few weeks. I have been closely occupied in writing to Europe and to different parts of this continent. We feel a little quickening here. Brother Watcote preaches every night. Saturday 13. The preachers are coming in to the conference. I have felt fresh springs of desire in my soul for a revival of religion. Oh, may the work be general. It is a happy thing to be united as is our society. The happy news of the revival of the work of God flies from one part of the continent to the other, and all partake of the joy. End of section 7. Recording by Brian Keenan.